Let's get to Mac Jones. What have you seen as his strengths and weaknesses?
I think in many ways he's stylistically similar to Purdy, other than the fact that he's not as good an athlete as Purdy. But I think when you put him in the context of this offense, he is a timing rhythm player. He can execute the kinds of throws that are asked to be made in this offense. The way in which he plays, he's a timing rhythm player who gets the ball out. And that fits what Kyle wants.
What did you see from Brock Purdy? Because as you might expect, some fans saw 2 interceptions, and, they don't like that, Greg.
Purdy looked particularly good to me because at least he knows how to play quarterback right now. But it's funny you talk the interceptions. The first interception was very interesting because it was a first down play. And I think people will be able to see this because I'll explain it, I hope, very clearly. And I think it was a run blitz by the linebacker Thomas, who didn't play many snaps. It was first down. I don't believe it was a pass blitz. It was a run blitz. And McCaffrey was forced to pick him up. And so what that meant is McCaffrey could not release as a check down or as an underneath route, which would have been right in the area of Jones and the linebacker, Ernest Jones. So what happened there is Jones was able to sink and get much more depth because he didn't have McCaffrey right in front of him as a potential receiver. And there was pressure on Purdy, so he kind of fell away from the throw, trying to hit Jennings on the dig route, part of the dagger concept, and therefore Jones was able to get really good depth and still had to leap up to get it. So, it's the kind of throw where the fact that Purdy does not have a power arm comes into play because the pocket was squeezed and he sort of threw it falling away. But I understand why he threw it. It wasn't a bad read. It was just that the Seahawks beat the 49ers on that play because of the blitz, which, as I said, I thought was a run blitz.
Yeah, and tip of the cap to Seattle and the linebacker for dropping deep and making that throw almost impossible to complete. It's the other interception, Greg, that kind of stuck with me because, and he's got at least 2 or 3 defenders there. What did you see on the tape about that choice from Purdy to make that interception?
Yeah, that was man coverage all the way, and Josh Jobe played it really well. He undercut Pearsall because he knew he had help over the top. There was really no window for Purdy to get the ball to Pearsall. Witherspoon kind of sunk from underneath, and Woolen from over the top kind of squeezed the space as well. That was a poor decision. That ball should not have been thrown to Pearsall. So that one was just a poor decision. And an important part of the game, too, because that was in the fourth quarter. So that one he should not have thrown. I know why he threw it, because the play really it was a vertical element on the left side, kind of a post route, and then Pearsall was running kind of the crosser or over, and it's a very common 2-route concept. And he pretty much thought, hey, I'm going to throw it to Pearsall because that's normally where you throw it in that concept. And he just, I don't know whether he didn't see it correctly or he truly thought he could get it in. Only Brock could tell you that. But it turned out to not be a good decision based on how the coverage played out.
All right, Greg, take us through, and it wasn't the last play, but the touchdown pass that ended up being the game winner. Like, what went through your mind when you saw him release the ball the first time you saw it?
You're talking about oh, yeah, well, I saw it live, obviously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I saw him release the ball, obviously, I'm thinking to myself, this is probably not going to be a good thing, because the play started to have the feel of a bad play. I mean, you know how that goes. It just started to have the feel of a really bad play. And, I that's what I kind of felt. And then the guy just went, look, it's a lucky play, but it worked. I mean, he looked left initially. Obviously he was looking left to the 2 receivers, to McCaffrey and Valdez Scaling, I guess it was, on that play, 83, if I remember correctly. So he was looking to the 2-man concept. Could he have thrown it to Valdez Scaling? He may have been able to. Sometimes when you have a new receiver and you just don't feel like like, for instance, if that was Jennings who would run that route, maybe he throws it to him because he feels good about Jennings. But he comes off of it, and then the pressure, actually there was pressure there. Williams did get pushed back into the pocket, and then he had to leave the pocket to his right. And then it becomes a fire drill, and you're just looking, you're looking for someone. And this was 3rd down. The score was 13-10, right?
13-10, yep.
Yeah, I mean, could he have thrown it away and they kick a field goal and make it 13-13? I guess fans would say, well, that's not pretty much a given.
Right.
Yeah. So, again, you never know what goes through a quarterback's mind in that situation. Purdy's probably not thinking as he's running for his life to the right that, gee, what can Moody do right here? I'm sure that didn't really cross his mind as he's running to his right. But he threw it up. And when he threw it up, just watching on TV, I'm kind of thinking, I'm not really sure about that. And then it just happened to be one of those plays. Tongas went up and got it. I mean, beyond that, what are you going to say? I mean, it was, it's just kind of a lucky play, a fluky play to some degree.
Yeah, I didn't see the luck in it. I saw a 49er make a play, whereas a Seahawk didn't. But I don't want to quibble with your use of the four-letter word.
Not the right word, but fluky. Like you wouldn't have expected that.
Right. Certainly not how they drew it up. I want to ask you about the 22 personnel that Kyle used. You lose Kittle, and in that second drive in the second half, they started using a lot of big packages, 2 tight ends, 2 running backs. What did you see from the 49er offense and the way they had to shift after Kittle got hurt?
Well, personally, I think one reason they started doing that is because it became evident pretty much from the start of the game that the Seahawks were going to play in their nickel versus big personnel. See, that's a very odd thing. The Seahawks ended up playing nickel. The Seahawks played 58 nickel snaps, okay? And they played, I believe, 32 of those 58 snaps against 12 and 21 personnel. So I think that they probably thought that they would have an advantage running the ball. Now, they didn't run really well. I didn't think that was a function of McCaffrey. I thought he looked fine. I thought the Seahawks did a really good job of controlling gaps. I thought it was much more a function of that. But I think once they saw how the Seahawks were going to play from a personnel standpoint, playing nickel to 12 and 21, they figured they'd stay with it. And by the way, we know that 21 personnel is a major foundation of Kyle's offense basically since they've had use check. So that's not something that's abnormal for the 49ers.
Greg, let's get to Mac Jones, who we are likely to see Sunday in New Orleans. And I guess start with sort of more of an umbrella question about his play over the last 4 years. What have you seen as his strengths and weaknesses?
Well, I think in many ways he's stylistically similar to Purdy, other than the fact that he's not as good an athlete as Purdy. But I think when you put him in the context of this offense, and that's all we can do because that's what he's going to be doing, is he is a timing rhythm player. He can execute the kinds of throws that are asked to be made in this offense. Now, he obviously played last year and had some ups and some downs, which was to be expected. He was in a pretty dysfunctional situation. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's going to come out and be unbelievable and wow, it's special. But the way in which he plays, and I think everybody was probably well aware when he came out in the draft that it seemed that Kyle liked him because it's that style of quarterback. He's a timing rhythm player who gets the ball out, and that fits what Kyle wants. I mean, Kyle, it's funny. I said in the matchup room here, we got, 3 or 4 guys that, we all work on the show, and every week when I watch the 49ers, I call guys in and say, boy, that's a really cool concept. That's a really well-designed play. And that's what Kyle does really well. He's really good at designing plays and creating reads for the quarterback. I mean, just think of the use check 25-yard reception, okay? I'm sure you guys remember that. That is just a beautifully schemed and designed play. That's what Kyle's good at. And ideally, your quarterback is able to get the ball to his primary read based on the design of the pass game. And if that can be the case more often than not, of course, it's never the case 100% of the time, but if that can be the case more often than not, then Mac Jones can function in that style of offense because that's who he is. He's not something else. That's who he is.
Yeah, that play was, use check kind of chips and delays, and all of a sudden he had the entire half of the field. And I just highlight you pointing it out because Juszczyk may have to play more of a Kittle role. Is he suited to slide up when they do have 21 personnel, 2 running backs? He did a lot of it against Seattle, but he wasn't as much of a pass catcher. Can he, based on what you've seen, kind of assimilate the Kittle role a little bit?
I think he can, and he's done that in the past. There's always been plays to use check in the pass game that have been designed for him. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, boy, he's going to be a foundation in the pass game, but there's no question that you can design plays for him. He's a very good receiver. He's not just a check down guy. I mean, obviously, you're not going to line him up wide and say run by somebody, but there's no question you can create opportunities for him. I mean, I remember plays over the years where he'd be an offset back in a two-back set with the quarterback under center, and it would look like an ISO lead run, and he'd run right at the linebacker, but it wouldn't be a run, and then he would just keep releasing, and they'd throw the ball to him. So, I mean, there's ways to get him involved as a pass receiver more than they normally use him. No one's Kittle, obviously. Kittle's, arguably the most complete tight end in the league. But you certainly can do that, and they'll figure that out. I mean, even Jennings, it was his first game. He hadn't practiced a lot. He'll probably be more of a factor. We saw Pearsall. Pearsall's a good player. So we'll see how the pass game works. They'll definitely want to run the ball better than they did in terms of production.
Greg, interesting that you would say stylistically Mac and Brock similar, but Brock obviously the better athlete. So here's what I'm curious about. Go back to last week, and you saw what you saw from the 49ers offensive line, which did, again, it did force Brock to use his legs a lot. Now Mac, who won't use his legs as much, is behind that offensive line. So I wonder if you see that as potentially problematic.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm always leery of making those kinds of judgments after one game, because how many snaps did they play together in the preseason? Together, 5 guys, probably none.
None. Trent Williams didn't play. Yeah.
Right. So again, I'm not going to sit here and say they'll be great. They could have some issues again. All I'm saying is I'm never comfortable after week 1 making a definitive judgment about a player, a team, a unit. You would expect them to be better. Don't forget they've got a new left guard. You would expect them to be better. It's a pretty good Saints defense in terms of personnel, so that could cause them some issues. But I would definitely expect them. I didn't think this was Trent Williams' best game either. I mean,
no,
he didn't play all preseason. No matter, look, the guys that we all know he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but you still have to shake the rust off. I mean, this is the first time he played, and then you're not asking him to play 15 snaps to just get a feel. You're asking him to play. I mean, they ran 72, 73 plays. They ran a lot of plays.